Yeah. Could you put my picture on the back screen too? Cool. Thanks. Not my picture, yeah. We're going to talk today about something that's hit close this week. So every day we have lunch down in the cafeteria there at the hospital. And, a lot of days, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of done talking to people, like mentally done. And so I get my lunch, I take it back up to my office and I eat in peace, or I have Craig come up with me. We try to eat together too, and we'll eat together there in the office. Now Craig is a socialite. He likes talking to people. I don't know that Craig ever runs out of talking to people. A good guy, honestly great guy. Now I'm more of, I live in my head more probably than Craig does, and nothing against him. He's an extrovert. I'm more of a introvert that has social tendencies, and so I don't know that Craig gets a lot out of it, but he does go up with me, and we talk about a lot of things. But this week there was a couple different days this week, and it was interesting because someone came up to me at the lunch table, at the table we were eating, and they just wanted to tell us about some things that had been going on. And they began to share, and I started to get convicted. Because here's the thing, and this is where this message comes off. Jesus just ate with people. He just show up at people's houses. Do you realize that? I should get that. Being your pastor and everything, I should get that. But, I've got all this religion that I've been taught for years. Religion that says that God's up here, God Almighty, God the thing. And it's not that he's not those things. But Jesus, when he was on this earth, he walked around with people. He didn't stay in a house waiting for them to come to him. He was out with people. He was out meeting with people. He was in people's lives. He would just drop in on people working and start talking to them. That's an intimacy. There's an intimacy to that act. There's an intimacy when you meet people where they are. Now, how intimate would it look if I just locked myself in this church, and if you needed me, you could come see me? It wouldn't be very intimate. And Jesus didn't do things that way. And I think that's a problem for a lot of the modern ways that we do things, is that we've lost some of the intimacy that Jesus had. I hear all the time that from people that don't go to church, that you church people shut yourself up in them four walls, and then that's the last we see of you, and usually hear of you as far as anything Jesus is what you do in your four walls. The person I get to meet from the church, they never act like they've been to church in their life on Monday through Friday, and that's a dangerous thing, because I believe that Jesus brought himself into every situation that he was in. We're going to talk a little bit. So one of the ways I noticed that Jesus was intimate is he stayed in Peter's house. Let's do this first. Ephesians 2, 4-5 says that God is so rich in mercy, and he loves us so much that even though we were dead because of our sins, he gave us life when he raised Christ from the dead. It is only by God's grace that you have been saved. Jesus was his plan. Jesus was his plan to connect to his people. And he said, Paul says this in Ephesians, that God used Jesus to come to us, to give us life. And by giving us life, he gave us himself. He's the one that put life. It said that we were dead to sin and trespasses, meaning that sin had made us as if we were marked for death. But God used Jesus to give us his life. And we were saved. And like I said before, one of the ways he showed that is in this person of Jesus. Jesus didn't just come down to this earth, sit in a house, and kind of govern from on high. He didn't live. He could have. Do you realize that God being God, he could have been born in one of the nice houses, and he could have sat on a throne for his entire life. And I know I've talked a little bit about this before in some other messages, but I wanted to put this all together because I want you to see that Jesus was here amongst us. If you're a farmer, he could have been one of your grain drivers. If you're a woodworker, he may have been building stuff beside you. Jesus was one with the people. He wasn't removed. He lived among us. I mean, think about that. He just lived among us. I mean, when you think about all the things that we say about God, God the all-seeing, God the all-knowing, God the high and mighty and everything else, it doesn't paint the picture of intimacy. But when Jesus was on this earth, he walked among us. Like I alluded to before, he stayed in Peter's house. Now, I don't know about you. Some people just go sleep in people's houses. Like they don't even have to know you all that well. They'll say, "Hey, I'm gonna come up. Can I sleep in your house?" And I'm not one of those people. I'm like, I have to know you if I'm gonna sleep in your house, because I mean really, like we must be best friends for me to even consider that. Because I don't just like sleeping just anywhere, to be honest. It's a very short list of houses that I've slept in besides my own. So I do want to say that I have to know you, and yet Jesus, he meets Peter, and then the next thing we find out, he's just sleeping in Peter's house. He's just staying there, kind of a base of operations. And I mean, he didn't ask to go over to the rich. And the thing is, he had all these invitations from rich people to stay in their houses. But instead, he chose Peter's in Capernaum. He said, we'll just stay here at Peter's house. So let's read this verse. Keep going. Yeah. Mark 2, 1-2. When Jesus returned to Capernaum several days later, the news spread quickly that he was back home. And soon the house where he was staying, which we understand as Peter, was so packed with visitors that there was no more room, even outside the door. So not only was he sleeping in Peter's house, but I get a little mad. If I've taken the time to go to someone's house, I don't want a lot of extra people there. I'm there to meet with them. But Jesus, apparently, he's staying in Peter's house, and he starts welcoming in people from the outside. Like it's so big, it becomes so many people that come in to see him that it's packed. There's no more room. And what does this lead into? This leads into the story where they have a lame man, and they lower him through the roof so that Jesus can see him. Because it is so packed, it is that packed, that they couldn't force this lame man into the house, and they lowered him from the roof down to where Jesus was. My goodness, if we had this problem in the church, that'd be a pretty good problem to have. But Jesus is sitting in this person's house, not at a church building, and they fill it up with people. Think about that. Jesus was so okay with people being around him that he, even though he was staying in a house, he let them bring everybody in to come talk with him and to see him teach. Do you get that? He wasn't turning people away. He says, come close. Come closer. Common people. Peter was a fisherman. Remember this. So Peter probably didn't live in the nicest house. He probably didn't live among the nicest houses. And he let the common people come up close to him. So, and with that thought, we know Peter probably didn't have a big house. So I don't know, you've all been in small houses before. It's hard to have very many people in there because you start to feel claustrophobic. And yet they were so packed, they couldn't even get this lame man in to see Jesus. Wow. Think about the intimacy, the closeness. Everybody was so tied up that they couldn't even get somebody through them up to Jesus. There's no more room even outside the door because everybody was wanting to watch. So I'm assuming they had windows open. They had all this, they had every way that you could still hear Jesus and be around that. But he let them come close. Keep all this in mind. We're going somewhere. Let's go to the next point. He healed their diseases. Now, you're sitting here thinking, well, yeah, of course he did. We know he went around and healed people. But this isn't the same time what we're talking about. Let's read this story. There large crowds followed Jesus as he came down from the mountainside. And suddenly a man with that, this was right after the Beatitudes, and approached him and knelt before him. And he said, the man said, if you are willing, you can heal me and make me clean. We have a problem. A man who today would be put either so far away from people that there would be no interaction, or would be in a quarantine tent. He comes up and he approaches Jesus. This was a problem then too. They had the right to throw stones at him and drive him away, and nobody cared. They didn't want them close to them. They were trying to stop the spread of leprosy. And he came close to Jesus. Jesus invited him in close. Let's read about this. Jesus reached out and touched him. Whoa! We jumped even closer, didn't we? Not only was he not supposed to get that close to Jesus, but Jesus, it didn't say the man touched him. Jesus reached out and touched him. And he says, I am willing, be healed. And instantly the leprosy disappeared. And then Jesus said to him, don't tell anyone about this. Instead, go to the priest and let him examine you. Take along the offering required in the law of Moses for those who have been healed of leprosy. This will be a public testimony that you have been cleansed. Intimate. He reached out and he touched him. The man who hadn't been touched in years receives his first touch, and that touch heals him. Now, he didn't do this in a vacuum. It wasn't like this guy came to him kind of in a back alley or something. No, it says him and the crowd were coming down from the mountainside, and this man approached him. I'm sure the crowd were already looking for stones to drive this man away. They saw his leprosy. Leprosy, if you've ever seen it, is a very easy disease to see. It doesn't hide. It's not like, I'm wanting to go somewhere, I'm not going to say that. It's not like a cancer that you could hide with clothes and everything else. Leprosy will be seen. Noses start falling off. Fingers start falling off. It's easy to see somebody with leprosy. So everybody knew who this guy was. He was on that list behind the counter of people that don't come into the store. Everybody knew it. And what does Jesus do? Instead of being like everybody else, Jesus walks up to him and puts his hands on him. And he says, be healed. And then I hope he went and he tried to shake all the people's hands that were trying to follow him. Talk about a test of faith. Jesus healed their diseases. Let's talk about the blind man. You know what? People in this society, if you were disabled, you weren't allowed around, like you didn't get the same benefits like we have today. They didn't have places that they stick them and they help take care of them, like a nursing home or a place like that. So this blind man probably didn't smell the best. What does it say Jesus did there? He leaned down on the ground. He put some mud and he put his fingers over his eyeballs and held the mud there. He says, now go wash in the pool of Siloam. He was intimate. He touched this blind man. The blind man that probably smelled, that probably hadn't taken a bath in a while, and he touched him. This is revolutionary stuff. This is intimacy with a respected person in town. Not only is it intimacy with someone, it's intimacy with someone who was looked up to. How many did it say was on the mountainside with Jesus? 5,000. And that's just the men that were counted. There's that many people, and they're all coming down from the mountainside, and Jesus meets the leper that we just talked about. There was a huge crowd, and he heals the blind man. He did this in front of people. He showed them that it's okay to touch me. When he gets caught, when it's interesting when we talk about the woman with the issue of the blood, because it says that he said who has touched me, and the disciples said, everybody's here touching you, God. Think about that statement. Everybody was touching Jesus. Not God. I said God there. Everybody's touching you, Jesus. Everybody was touching Jesus. And Jesus wasn't bothered by that, but someone touched him that was different. And he said, I feel virtue go out of me, or power go out of me. And he said, so it's that person I want to see. And he figured out it was this lady who was unclean, again, not of that time allowed to be among people, according to the law of Moses. And he didn't shun her. He tells her faith has made her whole. He says, congratulations. You don't have to deal with that anymore. Do you understand that? Are you getting the picture here? This is as close as you could be with someone. Jesus was. When we talk about Jesus being an example, this is hard for people like me to hear. I'm not a big fan of getting super close to people. I'm not a person that does a lot of hugging or touching. And it says Jesus would touch people. He would get so close that he was okay with them touching him and bringing healing. We put some kind of we put like a glaze, or maybe it's just me. I put a glaze on Jesus before as this holy person, and yet it says he was touching common people. I'm okay, like if you know me, like any of you all hugging me, totally fine. It'd be a little different though if I was just out in the street and some Joe Blow like comes up and hugs me. I always feel weird because I'm like, I don't know that I really like, it's hard, Am I right? And Jesus is going along with all this. He's letting people come close. I guess this is revolutionary thinking for me because I've had a lot of church in me. And it seems like most of the messages I hear create distance between you and God. They talk about this holy God. They talk about all this stuff. And yet we see God's son Jesus on this earth, and he's out there amongst them. He's in the press of the crowd. He's letting people come to where he's eating and having and sleeping, and has long conversations with big groups of people. I like to think of my house as a refuge, as a place that I get away and I recover and I recoup from what I go through the day. And Jesus is saying, come on in. It's okay if you fill every inch of this house and I have to like stand on a little box right here with you pressed up so tight. Let me do that. Let's do that. And you sit there and you start thinking about this. And it starts to make me, I'll be honest, I get a little crawly in the skin. Thinking that people would be in my house or the place that I had made my house for that time, and they were just packed in that tight. I like my house to be a refuge. I like it to be a place where I can go and get away and learn to breathe again. And Jesus was okay with it. He invites them closer. He didn't say, I'm going to cut the limit off here at the house at 10. We're going to do 10. But, kind of give me that bubble, that 5-foot bubble we all like. He said, come on in. Keep packing in. Everybody needs, if you want to hear it, come on in. Open these windows. Let them sit at the windows. I don't care. It's a hard place. It's a hard place to be. I'm not even sure modern churches are built right. We put me up on this raised stage. I've got a pulpit in between me and you, and Jesus is just standing there, just nose to nose with people, preaching, talking to them, answering their questions. This is a first for these people. They don't know what to do. They're used to the Pharisees that keep that distance from people, that determine how many people can be around them, that stay up here and have people out there. Makes me uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable by the idea of that much closeness, but I'm also uncomfortable about that idea of how we do church, how I'm separated. Let's keep going. He ate in their houses. Do you realize that? He didn't, but I purposely picked someone else. He didn't just eat in Peter's house. He ate in all kinds of people's houses. It records he ate in Mary and Martha's house, which, I mean, they sound like good friends. I'm sure that's not a problem. But here's one that threw me. He meets Matthew in the street. Go with the verse. He meets Matthew in the street. And listen to this verse. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at his tax collector's booth. "Follow me and be my disciple," Jesus said to him. So Matthew got up and followed him. Later, Matthew invited Jesus and his disciples to his home as dinner guests, along with many tax collectors and other disreputable sinners. But when the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with such scum?" Matthew wasn't allowed in this temple. Do you realize that? Matthew couldn't be a good Jew. He wasn't allowed in the temple. He was considered a betrayer of the Jewish people because he was collecting for Rome. Rome didn't like him. They didn't consider him a citizen, but they allowed him to collect money on their behalf, but they didn't invite him to their parties. So the only people Matthew knows in the world are other tax collectors. And Jesus comes to his house to eat. Do you see this? The same people that Jesus should be associated with showed up because they heard that Jesus was going to this guy's house. And they couldn't believe it. They wanted to come to see this for themselves. They couldn't believe that this guy's going to the scum's house. And they see Jesus in there eating with them. They thought maybe Jesus, I'm sure they thought, well, maybe he's going to say a general blessing or something over the house and then, maybe take a thing. But Jesus is in there picking up the chicken. He's eating chicken at the guy's table. And not just Matthew, not just one person, because then they could think he was doing he was trying to convert Matthew. But he's got all the known tax collectors around the city are sitting at Matthew's table, and Jesus is in there amongst them. And they're incensed, just like religious people are. Just like religious people still get. When you can talk to them, when you start to tell them about God being a personal God that will live with you inside your heart, they're incensed. Do you know that there's Christians today that have the Holy Spirit, and religious people will talk that bad about them? Their circumstances aren't like ours. They had problems in the past. They did drugs. Maybe they came to Jesus pregnant and didn't know the Father. All these different things. And yet these religious people will see the God inside of them and call them demonic. That's still going on today. You didn't come in your suit. Obviously, you don't know. You're not saved. I don't know if you noticed this, but we take a very relaxed dress policy around here. That was my intention. My dad had grew up in these clothesline messages church, and he never wanted to preach that. Now, he always wore a suit, but that was in case his friends showed up and he wanted them to be comfortable in their suits. But he never preached against any kind of a clothesline message because he believed that he wanted people here as they were. We've continued that tradition. Tony used to come in his tracksuits. I was like that. I don't own a tracksuit, or I might try it one day, but because I don't run any tracks, so it's hard to own a tracksuit. So then people think, you might be an athlete. Then I'd have to say, nah, I just like the way it's loosely around me, Anyway, yeah, I know, no, but he played basketball once upon a time, so that counts, But no, off track. I'm good at that. He's in there amongst them. I wanted you to see this because you can excuse some of these others. Well, he can heal people because that's kind of his job, isn't it? Isn't that kind of Jesus' thing? He heals people. He's got to sleep somewhere. So I understand he's sleeping in his disciples' house. But here is a place that Jesus had no earthly reason for being, societal reason, there's a good word. That's how we'll say that. No societal reason to be there. And he's in there amongst them. And these religious people's eyes are bugging out. The people in the suits' eyes are bugging out. Because he's eating with them. He's laughing at their jokes. These aren't Christian people. These aren't good Jewish people. They're telling coarse jokes. And Jesus is laughing with them. I mean, it's bad enough he hangs around with fishermen. We all know the type of people that are fishermen. My brother went fishing yesterday for his birthday, so he'll see that. Enjoy that. But anyways, he's in there amongst them. Do you realize that level of intimacy? I worry sometimes because I realize when I read verses like this, I don't have that level of intimacy with people. Especially these type people. There's a lot of hurting people out there. This person came up to me at lunch. I don't know if I finished that story even. So this person comes up to me at lunch. And they're telling me some things. I said, well, I never usually see you down here. I was like, yeah, that's why. There's a reason. And I realized how wrong I was about this. I'm called to be Jesus to the world. And I'm hiding in an office. A lot of soul searching this week. It says Jesus was walking along, where we are, next verse, sorry, thank you. When Jesus heard this, he said, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. Smartest statement I believe that's in the Bible. Did you read that? I mean, this may be the smartest thing in the Bible. It's a duh moment. Healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. I'm sure he said healthy people with a very heavy inflection. Because the truth is that the Pharisees should be right there amongst them. They're not healthy. So I'm sure Jesus kind of said, healthy people don't need a doctor, the sick do. He knew their hearts. He knew what they were thinking. He'd watched them all his life on the streets, passing up the people that needed God, the very people that needed God. So then he decides to play to their religious mindset. He said, then he added, now go and learn the meaning of this scripture. I want you to show mercy, not offer sacrifices. For I have come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners. What's the first part of the Alcoholics' Creed? Admit you're an alcoholic. You have to admit you're an alcoholic. First part of getting saved is admitting you're a sinner. Admitting that you have done things against God, even if you didn't know it. That's exactly what Jesus said. I can't help you until you admit you're sick. A doctor can't help you until you admit you're sick, can he? Until you admit that I need to get this fixed and go to the hospital, a doctor can't do anything for you. By law. You have to admit, I am in bad shape. I need to go see someone that can fix this. And he's comparing that to the state of sin. I am separated from God, and I don't have to be. Let me go and fix this. That's a hard thing. But now here's the kicker. This is the kicker right here. As our worship team comes up, I'm going to end with this. This is the big kicker. Let's go to our next slide. And then there's this verse, the uncomfortable verse. Because we can begin to believe that Jesus was a one-off, a product of being raised among humans. But then Jesus drops this on his disciples on his last night before he's crucified. He said, have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you still don't know who I am? Anyone who's seen me has seen the Father. Jesus says, you think I'm a fluke? No, this was the Father's intention all along. He wanted you to come close. He said, but you used the things that acknowledge that God is holy as a reason to stay away, as a reason to create distance. He says, anyone who has seen me has seen the Father, so why are you asking me to show him to you? Don't you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I speak have not been my own, but my Father who lives in me does his work through me. Just believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or at least believe because of the work you see me to do. He said, you sit here and you watch me heal people after people that I shouldn't be touching, people that I shouldn't be eating with, people that I shouldn't be around their house. And I walked in, I've been there. Do you see God? He said, if you see me do that, that means God wants to do that. He wants to be in your house. He wants to be at your dinner tables. He wants to be a healer to your diseases. I was sharing this with Trey this morning about I was reading a book from Brennan Manning, and he talked about this girl. She thought that she just got grafted into this salvation thing. She just got grafted in because, Jesus kind of had to accept us. And she was in a worship service. And she went to a ladies' convention. They convinced her. She was kind of that grudging church member that just trying to do her duty. She didn't want to have to go to hell for all the things that she had done in her life, and she knew it had been a lot. She'd been an unwed mother. She'd been raped. She'd been all kinds of different things that were telling her she wasn't enough. But she said she'd been listening to Brennan, and he said, when you worship, imagine that you're sitting at the feet of Jesus. So she agreed to do it, kind of begrudgingly, because that's what they told her to do, and she didn't want to be weird and not go to the worship service because she just felt like she would rather hear teaching. And she said while she was in worship, she saw Jesus on the cross. And he said, this is for you. It didn't end there. She went a little further. She saw Jesus coming out of the grave. And he said, this was for you too. And he invited her back to come and eat with the disciples as he came out of the grave and met with them in that room. All her life she felt like she wasn't enough. As she got in, because Jesus, just like a bad loan, it gets thrown in with the good loans, and the bank that buys that batch of loans has to accept them all, regardless if they're good or bad. She felt like she was one of the bad loans. And Jesus said, no, I knew who you were when I came and got you, when I accepted you. She said just joy went through her soul. Just absolute a new joy, because she realized she wasn't just put in because she had to be. She was put in because Jesus wanted her there. Intimacy. If Jesus is willing to go into people's houses, if he's willing to sit down and eat, and if he's willing to touch the people that are untouchable, Jesus said God is too. We've misread all these verses all along. It wasn't to create distance. It was to create access. Let's sing this song, and then we'll close.